Before I even tell you what happened in Britain this week, let me just say this changes everything you thought you knew about how far this government will go to accommodate illegal migrants. I'm Andrew Meet Rich, former analyst for a state-run media outlet, and now I bring you the truth they don't want you to hear. What I'm about to show you will make your blood boil. Entire streets in the UK are being handed over exclusively to asylum seekers, while British families struggle to find housing. And wait until you hear what's happening in Brussels, where prosecutors are literally in hiding because drug gangs control the streets. This isn't just news. This is a complete breakdown of European civilization happening right before our eyes. If you want the raw truth about what's really happening to our continent, hit that like button and subscribe now, because tomorrow the news could change everything. Let me paint you the picture of what's actually happening in Britain right now. Local authorities have alerted the Home Office that entire streets are being designated exclusively to accommodate asylum seekers, according to the Daily Express this Monday. You heard that right? Entire streets. Not just houses, not just buildings, but complete neighborhoods being transformed into asylum seeker colonies. 12 Reform UK council leaders have warned that whole blocks of flats or streets of new housing are not available to local people, creating what they call a them and us mentality. The local authority figures have pointed to a string of areas in Kent as the areas worst affected by this £500 million takeover, including Thanet, Canterbury, Dover and Folkestone. And you know what the most infuriating part is? The areas being targeted are always the most deprived communities where property is cheapest. Working class Brits get pushed out while illegal migrants get housed for free. The cost has reached £8 million per day for temporary housing, and that's your tax money being flushed down the drain while British families can't afford rent. Here's where it gets even worse. Landowners and landlords are going directly to the Home Office to market units exclusively for asylum use, cutting out local people completely. They're literally profiteering off Britain's destruction while families struggle to find homes. Wait until you hear the next part. There were 4,840 refugee households reported as homeless from January to March 2024, marking a 350% increase compared to 2023. So let me get this straight. We're spending millions housing asylum seekers in hotels and entire streets, but somehow they're still becoming homeless at record rates? This is insanity. The asylum backlog has reached 119,000 cases, with people staying in expensive temporary accommodation for years. The average annual cost per asylum seeker rose from £17,000 in 2019 to £41,000 in 2023. And here's the kicker. 32,345 asylum seekers were living in 218 hotels as of March 2025. They're literally destroying working-class communities to accommodate people who shouldn't even be here. The dispersal system is completely broken, with nearly one-third of UK councils housing fewer than 20 asylum seekers each, while others are overwhelmed. Compared with other European countries, the UK stands out for its heavy reliance on hotels and private providers. We're the laughingstock of Europe. Private contractors reported £380 million in profit in May 2025 while British families suffer. If you're still with me, hit that like button. It tells me you want the truth, not just the headlines. But if you think this is bad, wait until you hear what's happening in Brussels. You won't believe what I'm about to tell you about Brussels. There have been 57 shootings in the Belgian capital so far this year, including 20 since the start of the summer, Brussels public prosecutor Julien Moynil said this week. 57 shootings in just 8 months. That's one shooting every 4 days in the supposed capital of European civilization. And get this, the public prosecutor of Brussels, Julien Moynil, has been living in hiding for months following threats from the city's criminal drug underworld. The top law enforcement official in Brussels has to hide like a fugitive because criminals control the city. Last year alone, around 92 shooting incidents were reported in Brussels, killing 9 people and injuring 48. The violence this summer has already overtaken the first month and a half of the year, when 2 people were killed and 4 others injured in 11 shootings. Surrounded by bodyguards, and after every journalist attending was patted down, Moynil warned that everyone, every resident of Brussels and every citizen can become a victim. This is the heart of the European Union, and it's become a war zone controlled by drug gangs. Molenbeek alone had 4 shootings just a few days apart, and the Brussels region has been without a government for over a year. Citizens groups have increasingly complained about lawlessness in several Brussels neighborhoods at night. Here's where it gets absolutely shocking. Security cameras in problem areas either don't work or are completely absent. And this is where it gets insane. According to Moynell, 6,211 adult suspects and 874 minor suspects have been arraigned at the public prosecutor's office this year, a threefold increase compared to 2024. Crime has tripled in 1 year. Among them are 1,250 suspected drug dealers flooding the system. But here's the kicker. Out of the 100 people arrested in weapons or drug-related cases, he stated that on average only 9 end up in a closed center. Only 9% actually get locked up. The rest are back on the streets within hours. The Brussels Federal Judicial Police continue to face a major staff shortage despite the crime explosion. Security in prisons must be tightened so that leaders of criminal organizations can no longer continue to manage their networks from behind bars, because even when they do get arrested, they're running their drug empires from prison with mobile phones. Foreign nationals without residence permits who are arrested for crimes should be deported much faster, but instead they're released to commit more crimes. This is complete lawlessness, and European politicians are doing absolutely nothing about it. Even policymakers at the federal level haven't moved a single step forward despite having the opportunity. The prosecutor understands that some officers become disheartened when they arrest the same person 3, 4, or even 10 times, and that person keeps getting released. Subscribe now, because the next story we cover might hit even closer to home. Here's what's really happening across Europe right now. We're witnessing the complete collapse of law and order, from British streets being handed over to illegal migrants, to Brussels becoming a shooting gallery controlled by drug cartels. This isn't an accident. This is the result of decades of weak politicians who prioritize virtue, signaling over protecting their own citizens. The prosecutor in Brussels said it perfectly. One should not think that justice is not doing its job, but 10 or 20 years of laxity is not fixed in one day. 20 years of laxity, that's what we're dealing with. But here's the thing, we're not going to let them gaslight us anymore. We're building an honest English-speaking news community here that tells you the truth about what's happening to our civilization. Every like, every subscription, every comment you leave tells me you're ready to face the reality they want to hide. So hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and let me know in the comments what you think about these stories. Are you ready to keep fighting for the truth? People often ask me in the comments, who am I to talk about politics and comment on the news? Fair question. Let me tell you, I got into media almost by accident. I started out doing basic editing, cutting footage, putting stories together, nothing fancy. But little by little, I ended up behind the scenes of major newsrooms. That's where I saw how things really work. Not the polished version they show on screen, but the deals, the calls, the unspoken rules. I watched stories get rewritten, angles get softened, facts get bent. Not always with bad intent, but always with a clear goal: control the narrative. Say it this way, not that. Leave this part out. Emphasize this word. It wasn't journalism, it was choreography. And I couldn't unsee it, so I left. Walked away. Not because I had a grand plan, but because I couldn't keep pretending. Now for me, freedom of speech isn't a slogan. It's the right to speak truth, even when it's messy, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially then. If you feel this matters too, subscribe, hit like, and drop a comment. It really helps the channel grow, and it tells the algorithm this content deserves to be seen.